When Marco Delgado finally returned home after 4 years in Dubai, he expected two things: his wife, and the house he had spent years building for their future. Instead, he found a wedding reception in his front yard. White canopies, fairy lights, a bride in a wedding dress, his wife marrying another man. But what nobody at that wedding understood was this: Marco had not come back angry. He came back prepared. And before the night was over, a single folder would destroy every lie that had been told about him. I stood at the gate of my own house holding a pearl necklace I had spent 3 months saving for, and I watched my wife kiss a man whose name I did not yet know. A child ran past me with a balloon. A caterer stepped around me carrying a tray of champagne flutes without making eye contact, as though I were a piece of yard furniture somebody had forgotten to move before the party started. Nobody stopped the music. The band played our wedding song, At Last by Etta James, the same song I had slow danced to with her 6 years ago while her mother cried in the front row. They were playing it for someone else now. And the only thought in my head, clear as a bell cutting through static, was this: I am going to need the folder. I want you to picture something. Picture spending 4 years overseas, working double shifts in a rehabilitation hospital in the middle of a desert, sleeping 4 hours a night, eating the same microwaved meal at 2 in the morning in a country where nobody knows your last name and nobody cares to learn it. Every single month, without fail, you send money home. For the house renovation. For the SUV she said she needed. For the business you both swore would be your foundation when the distance was finally over. You do not complain. You do not cheat. You do not go quiet. You stay faithful to a woman on a phone screen 7,000 miles away. Now picture stepping off that plane after 4 years. No warning. Just love. Pure, exhausted, for year love. You are smiling as the rideshare turns onto your street. You hear music. You see canopies, caterers, guests in matching outfits, a crowd celebrating something big. At first you think maybe a neighbor's party, maybe a family reunion you were not told about. Then you see her, the white gown, the beaming face, her hand holding another man's hand. And before you can breathe, before your brain catches up with your eyes, her mother walks straight toward you and says the 7 words that will rearrange every year you have left. You are not welcome here anymore, Marco. That was me. That man standing at the gate with a duffel bag and a shattered chest. That was me. And I need to tell you what happened next, because nobody at that reception was ready for it. If this is the kind of story that grips you, take a moment right now and subscribe to this channel. We tell stories about real people making impossible choices, and this one is just getting started. But before I take you into that day, you need to understand something about who I was before it all fell apart. I am not a man who chases confrontation. I am not the type to flip a table and start swinging while 100 people watch and pull out their phones. I am not reckless. I am not naive. I am the kind of man who, long before I boarded that return flight, had already had certain conversations. With a lawyer, with a bank, with myself in the mirror at 3 in the morning after a shift that almost broke me. Because 4 years of silence does not mean 4 years of blindness. Some of you already sense where this is going. Most of you are about to be caught off guard completely. Stay with me. I did not tell anyone I was coming home. Not my mother in Brownsville. Not my brother Danny, who worked construction in Austin. Not even Joel, my closest friend since high school. The man who once drove 6 hours through the night from El Paso because I called him from the airport before my first flight to Dubai and told him I was scared and did not know if I was making the right choice. Joel would have told someone. He could not keep a secret longer than a weekend, and I loved him for it. But this was not a secret I could risk. I guarded this homecoming like something fragile, like something the universe might take from me if I spoke it into existence too soon. For years. That was how long I had been in Dubai. For years of 6 in the morning shifts at the Al Rashid Rehabilitation Center, where I wore the same pale blue scrubs 6 days a week and helped patients relearn how to use their legs while my own legs ached from standing on tile floors for 12 hours straight. 4 years of calculating every dirham, every dollar, every wire transfer fee, making sure the money reached San Antonio on time every single month without fail. Not because I had plenty. I did not have plenty. I lived in a shared apartment in Dara with 3 other American contractors. I ate rice and canned tuna 4 nights a week. I cut my own hair in the bathroom mirror because the barber near the hospital charged 40 dirhams, and 40 dirhams was 2 days of groceries. I did all of this because I had made a promise. Because I believed in us. Because the distance was supposed to be temporary and the sacrifice was supposed to have a payoff waiting at the end of it. I sent money for the house. The house on Ridgecrest Lane in a subdivision on the north side of San Antonio that we had purchased together the year before I left. It was a fixer-upper when we signed the papers. Cracked foundation, water-stained ceilings, a kitchen that looked like it had not been updated since the 1980s. I sent money to redo the floors, replace the roof, gut the kitchen, repar the driveway. I sent money for the Chevy Tahoe she said she needed because her old Civic had died and the commute to her school was 35 minutes each way. I sent money to start the laundromat business we had talked about the night before I left, sitting on the back porch of our half-finished house, her head on my shoulder, both of us tracing the shape of a future that felt so close we could almost hold it in our hands. That laundromat was supposed to be our foundation, our reward for surviving the separation. I did all of this without demanding photographs of the renovation progress, without requiring receipts, without needing to be praised or celebrated for what I was doing. I believed. That was all. I simply believed. And after 4 years, I was finally going home. The rideshare from the airport smelled like vanilla air freshener and leather conditioner, and the driver played country radio at a volume that suggested he was done making conversation, and I was grateful for it. I sat in the back seat with my duffel bag between my knees and watched San Antonio welcome me back through the window. The familiar sprawl of it. The taco trucks parked along the service roads. The H-E-B grocery signs rising over strip malls. The live oaks lining the older neighborhoods, their branches draped so low they brushed the rooftops. I had missed this city. I had not expected to miss it the way I did. Not just Texas, not just home, but the sound of it. The way people said sir and ma'am without thinking about it. The church parking lots overflowing on Sundays. The smell of mesquite smoke drifting from somebody's backyard at 5 in the afternoon. Dubai was clean and efficient and air-conditioned to the point of sterility, and it had almost emptied me out. Bit of traffic up ahead, the driver said near the interchange, checking his mirror. I nodded. I did not care about traffic. I was still smiling when we turned onto Ridgecrest Lane. I heard the music before I saw anything. Full, celebratory music. A live band, brass section, a vocalist with the kind of voice that fills a yard and spills into the street. My first instinct was warmth. Music meant gathering. Music meant community. Music meant someone on the block was throwing a party worth dressing up for. Then the car pulled past the last curve and I saw the house. My house. The fixer-upper I had poured 4 years of overtime pay into from a hospital room on the other side of the planet. It was finished. More than finished. It was beautiful. The siding repainted a clean slate gray. The new porch railing. The landscaping, rosemary hedges and crepe myrtles lining the walkway, tended by someone who cared. And the entire front yard and driveway were transformed into an outdoor reception. White canopies stretching from the porch to the property line. Round tables with ivory linen and centerpieces of white roses. A photo backdrop near the oak tree, the one I had refused to cut down during the renovation because Rachel loved the shade it gave in summer, strung with fairy lights that were already glowing in the late afternoon sun. Guests in matching outfits, coordinated champagne and gold, the kind of color scheme that takes weeks to plan. Caterers in black polo shirts moving between tables with the precision of people paid to make an evening flawless. My first thought was that the driver had the wrong address. My second thought ended before it finished because I recognized the mailbox I had ordered online from a hardware store in Dubai and had shipped directly to the house. The one with our house number welded into the side in a font I had chosen myself. This was my house, and whatever was happening inside my fence was happening without my knowledge. Then I saw her. Rachel was near the center of the yard, surrounded by guests, radiant in a way I had not seen in 4 years of video calls. She wore white. Not the casual white of a sundress, but the deliberate, unmistakable white of a bride. Beaded bodice, long sleeves, a veil pinned into hair that had been styled by someone who charged more than I earned in a day. She was smiling. The kind of smile that belongs to a person who believes, completely, and without reservation, that they are exactly where they are meant to be. And her hand rested comfortably, naturally, as though it had always belonged there, in the hand of a man I had never seen before. Tall, maybe 28, broad shoulders, a fitted navy suit with a champagne tie that matched the coordinated outfits of every guest in the yard. He was looking at Rachel the way I used to look at her, the way I still looked at her photograph on my phone every morning before my shift, touching the screen the way a man touches something sacred, which is to say gently and with the full weight of everything he cannot say out loud. I told the driver to stop. I paid. I stepped out. I stood at the entrance of my own gate with my duffel bag at my feet and a cardboard care package beside it, packed with everything a man brings home when he believes he still has a home, and I watched the reception continue without me. I did not shout. I did not charge into the yard. I did not do what every nerve ending in my body was screaming at me to do. I stood still. A woman in a champagne-colored dress glanced at me and looked away. Two men near the buffet table laughed at something I would never hear. The vocalist leaned into the microphone and held a note that floated across the yard like it belonged to a world where nothing was wrong. And everything inside me went completely, absolutely silent. That is the thing nobody prepares you for. The pain did not arrive the way you expect pain to arrive. It did not come loud or hot or violent. It came quiet, like a power outage. One moment there is light, and then the light is simply gone. And the darkness that follows is total. And the silence inside it is the loudest thing you have ever heard in your life. I stood in that silence. Then someone at the nearest table looked up from her plate and saw me. Her fork stopped. Her mouth opened. She turned to the woman beside her and said something low, and the whisper began to travel the way whispers travel at American celebrations. Fast, electric, from chair to chair and table to table until it reached someone who stood up completely and said loud enough for half the yard to hear, "Oh my God, is that Marco?" The music stumbled. The singer lost his place. The man in the navy suit, this stranger at the center of my yard, followed the turning heads and found me standing at the gate, and I watched something move across his face that was not guilt but confusion. The confusion of a man encountering someone who does not belong in the scene as he understood it. And then Rachel looked. She followed the line of too many staring faces, and she found me. For a long moment, she just looked at me the way a person looks at something their mind has no ready category for. Something that has arrived without permission. Then something crossed her face. I studied it carefully because I had 4 years of practice reading her expressions through a phone screen. It was not guilt. It was not shock. It was irritation. Like I was a package delivered to the wrong address on the wrong day. The groom had followed her eyes to me. He looked at Rachel. He looked at me. Whatever she had told this man about her life, about her past, about her marriage, it had not included me. I could see that plainly. He was as blindsided as I was, just from a different angle. And I felt something unexpected toward him in that moment. Not rage, not jealousy, something closer to recognition. He had been lied to, too. Then I heard footsteps. Slow, deliberate. The footsteps of someone who has already decided what they are going to say. I looked up and saw her moving through the crowd toward me. Diane Whitfield, Rachel's mother, 61 years old, 5 feet 2 inches of pressed linen and absolute moral certainty. She wore a champagne-colored dress with a corsage pinned to her chest, the kind a mother of the bride wears when she has been planning this day for months. She walked to me without hurrying, without hesitation, without any of the embarrassment the moment should have demanded. She stopped a few feet away. She looked at my duffel bag, at my travel clothes still wrinkled from 22 hours of airports and layovers, at my face, and she did not look away. And then she said it, calmly, flatly, as though it were an entirely reasonable thing to say to a man standing in front of a house he had paid for. "You are not welcome here anymore, Marco." I said nothing. I just stood there in the yard of my own home, beneath a Texas sky that could not have cared less about what was unfolding beneath it, while the music slowly and awkwardly found its way back to life around me. But here is what none of them understood. Not Rachel, not her mother, not the groom, not a single person standing in that yard watching me. I had not come home empty. I had not come home broken. I had not come home unprepared. I had come home with receipts. I had come home with a lawyer. I had come home with a plan. And I was about to use all three. Let me tell you something about American culture that nobody says out loud, but everybody knows. When a marriage ends while the man is working away from home, it is never the wife who is blamed. It is always the husband who left. Always the husband who chose money over presents. Always the husband who must have been doing something overseas, seeing someone, living a double life, because why else would a good wife move on? I had been back in San Antonio for less than 6 hours, and already the narrative had been written without me. I was the villain of my own story. I did not sleep that night. After Diane said what she said, after the yard full of guests stared at me like I was the one who had shown up uninvited to my own home, I did something that surprised even me. I smiled. Not a happy smile. Not a broken smile. The kind of smile that happens when your body realizes your brain has already moved past the emotion and into something colder, something more useful. I picked up my bag. I walked into the house. My house. I went upstairs to what used to be the guest room, and I locked the door. I sat on the edge of the bed, and I cried. Not loudly. Not dramatically. Quietly. The kind of crying that has no audience. The kind that is just your body releasing something it has been carrying for longer than you realized. For years of careful hope. For years of telling yourself the distance was temporary. For years of believing the woman on the other end of those video calls was the same woman you married. I gave myself 15 minutes. Then I washed my face, looked in the mirror at a man who was thinner and older than the one who had left this house 4 years ago, and walked back out. Because I had not flown 22 hours to cry in a guest room. The next morning, I began hearing the things Rachel had been saying about me. Not from Rachel directly. She moved through the house like a woman navigating a room full of broken glass, careful and cold, and hoping I would simply pack my bag and leave the way she had decided I already had years ago. The wedding guests had dispersed. The canopies were being folded and loaded into a rental truck. Tyler Brandt, the groom, I learned his name from the caterer who was stacking chairs in my driveway and seemed entirely too familiar with the layout of my property, had been quietly taken to his sister's apartment on the south side of town. The celebration was over, but the real story was just starting. It came to me in pieces, the way these things always do in families. My brother Danny called from Austin. He had heard from a cousin who had heard from someone at church who had heard from one of Rachel's co-workers. "Marco," he said carefully, "what exactly have people been saying?" I told him to tell me. He told me. According to Rachel, according to the version of events she had spent over a year carefully constructing and distributing through family gatherings, church small groups, social media posts vague enough to invite sympathy but specific enough to shape the narrative, and face-to-face conversations over coffee and brunch, I had abandoned her. Not relocated temporarily for work. Not sacrificed years of my life for our shared future. Abandoned. She told people I had stopped sending money, which was remarkable, because I had the wire transfer confirmations to prove otherwise, every single one, time-stamped and receipted. She told people I had someone in Dubai, another woman, a co-worker, a local, whoever the imagination of the listener preferred to insert. She told people I had changed, that the money had changed me, that I no longer called, no longer cared, no longer acted like a husband who intended to come home. And the people believed her. Of course they believed her. Not because the story survived any real scrutiny. It fit a shape they already recognized. The husband who goes abroad and forgets. The man who sends checks for a while and then drifts into his new life. The wife left holding everything together, patient and long-suffering, eventually forced to find happiness elsewhere. It was a story America has told 1,000 times. Nobody asked for my side. Not a single uncle. Not one aunt who had danced at our wedding. Not the pastor who had stood before us and told us that what God had joined together, let no man put asunder. They had already decided. I want to pause here and ask you something directly. Why is it that when a marriage falls apart, the first instinct is to believe the person who stayed? Why does physical presence automatically equal innocence? Why does distance automatically equal guilt? I was in Dubai working double shifts, sleeping on a bottom bunk in a shared flat, eating cantuna at midnight, so that every spare dollar could be wired home for a marriage that was being quietly demolished behind my back. And somehow I was the one who had abandoned something. Think about that. That afternoon, I went to the master bedroom. Rachel had left for her mother's house. The door was unlocked. I pushed it open and I stood in the doorway. The room was beautiful. Fresh paint, the shade of soft blue I had picked out from a color swatch Rachel had texted me 2 years earlier. New curtains. A king-sized bed with a headboard I had never seen before, larger and more expensive than the one we had bought together at a furniture outlet the month before our wedding. On the nightstand where my Bible and my watch case used to sit, a framed photograph. Rachel and Tyler, smiling on what looked like a lakeside dock, his arm around her waist, her head tilted against his shoulder with the comfort of two people who had been together for longer than a few months. My clothes were gone, not moved to a closet in another room, not folded into storage bins in the garage. Gone, as though I had never hung a shirt in that closet, as though my presence in that space had been so completely erased that even the memory of me had been tidied away. In their place, a man's wardrobe I did not recognize. Button-down shirts, khakis, a row of dress shoes lined up neatly on the rack. His things. In my house. His shoes were mine used to be. I stood in that doorway for a long time. Then I walked to the small desk by the window, the desk I had ordered from Wayfair while sitting in my flat in Dara because I wanted Rachel to have a dedicated space for her lesson planning. I opened the top drawer, and I found them. A stack of documents, several pages, folded together. Divorce papers. My name on them. Her name on them. The date on them was 9 months earlier. 9 months ago, while I was in Dubai working night shifts and wiring money home every month, these papers had been drawn up, but they were unsigned, unfiled, no court stamp, no attorney's signature of service. I had never been contacted by any lawyer. I had never been served. I had never signed a single thing. She had started the process of removing me from our marriage and had not even bothered to finish it. She had simply decided I was gone and proceeded as though the law agreed with her. And here is the part that nobody in that house, nobody at that reception, nobody in Rachel's carefully constructed narrative had considered. In the state of Texas, marriage is a legal contract. It can only be dissolved by a court-ordered divorce. It cannot be ended by one person deciding it is over and moving on. It cannot be voided by filing papers that nobody signs and no judge ever sees. And marrying someone while your existing marriage is still legally active is not a gray area. It is not a technicality. Under Section 25.01 of the Texas Penal Code, it is bigamy, a third-degree felony, punishable by 2 to 10 years in state prison. Rachel had not divorced me. She had simply decided I was gone and married someone else in the front yard of a house I was still legally co-owner of. And the man she married, Tyler Brandt, had no idea. Tyler came to see me 3 days after the wedding that was not a wedding. It was late evening. Rachel was still at her mother's house. There was a knock on the guest room door. I opened it, and he stood there in a plain white t-shirt and jeans, every trace of the confident groom in the navy suit completely gone. His eyes were red and his hands were shoved into his pockets the way a man puts his hands away when he does not trust what they might do. He asked if he could come in. I looked at this man who had been placed in the center of something he had not fully understood. This man whose wedding day had collapsed into wreckage through circumstances he did not create alone. I stepped back. He sat on the chair by the window, and he told me everything. He told me Rachel had said we were divorced, that the papers were signed, filed, granted, and done. He had asked to see the final decree. She had shown him something, a document he did not examine closely because he had no reason to doubt her. He did not know if it was the same unsigned filing I had found in the desk drawer or something else she had fabricated entirely. He had believed her because people generally believe the person they are in love with. He told me he had left a good job at an engineering firm in Dallas, packed his apartment, and moved to San Antonio because Rachel had promised him a home and a future and a wife. He told me Rachel was 3 months pregnant with his child. He told me he was 27 years old and he was terrified. Then he looked at me and said something I was not expecting. He said he thought they had both been played. I sat with that sentence for a long time after he left the room. Because he was right. Tyler and I were not enemies. We were not rivals in the way the story wanted us to be. We were two men who had trusted the same woman, believed different versions of the same lie, and ended up sitting on opposite sides of a catastrophe that neither of us had built. She had used both of us, lied to both of us, and now, with a pregnant man's life upended in his sister's apartment across town, an illegal marriage ceremony behind her, divorce papers nobody had signed, and a husband who had just arrived from Dubai with 4 years of wire transfer records and a very sharp attorney. Rachel's carefully arranged new life was standing on nothing. If this story has you hooked, type, "I'm still here," in the comments right now and let me know you are with me. Because what comes next is where everything shifts. I need to take you back now. Not to the house. Not to the reception. Not to Diane's face when she told me I was not welcome in my own home. I need to take you back to Dubai. To a Tuesday evening about 15 months before I returned to Texas. The night that changed everything, though I did not fully understand it at the time. I had just finished a double shift. 14 hours on my feet. I came back to the flat, dropped my bag by the door, and sat on the kitchen floor because I did not have the energy to make it to my bunk. My 3 flatmates were all working evening shift. The apartment was empty. I was eating crackers from a sleeve and scrolling through my phone when I saw a post in a San Antonio community group I had almost muted months earlier. It was a photograph. Someone had uploaded it without tagging anyone. The way people share information when they want it to circulate, but do not want the responsibility of having circulated it. A photo from what appeared to be a birthday dinner at a restaurant on the River Walk. In the background, partially cut off by the edge of the frame but unmistakably visible, were 2 people at a corner booth. One of them was Rachel. The other was a man I did not recognize. His hand was on hers across the table. They were leaning in close. The body language was not open to interpretation. I stared at that photograph for a very long time. I enlarged it. I studied every detail in the background, the restaurant, the lighting, the angle. I felt something cold and exact move through me, like a scalpel drawn slowly across skin. Part of me wanted to call her immediately. Shout. Accuse. Demand answers. Do everything that shock and adrenaline push a person toward. But I had learned something about myself over 4 years in the desert. My first instinct when wounded was fire, and fire, I had come to understand, almost always burns the person holding the match before it reaches anyone else. Instead, I called David. David Morales had been my closest friend in Dubai for 2 of my 4 years there. A Mexican-American attorney, licensed in both Texas and the UAE, with a specialty in international family law and a reputation for representing overseas workers whose families had quietly rearranged the financial landscape while they were away. We had met at the American Community Thanksgiving gathering at the Marriott and become close over brisket shipped from a guy somebody knew in Houston and the particular, draining loneliness of being an American man abroad, holding too many things together at once while pretending none of it was heavy. I called him and told him what I had seen. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Marco, before you do anything else, I need you to listen to me carefully." I listened. What he told me over the next 2 hours changed the entire architecture of what was coming. He told me that in Texas, a marriage can only be dissolved by a court-ordered divorce decree, not by separation, not by agreement, not by one party filing paperwork that never gets signed or submitted. Until a judge signs a final decree, the marriage is legally intact regardless of what either spouse tells their friends, their family, or their new partner. He told me that any marriage ceremony conducted while a prior valid marriage still exists constitutes bigamy under the Texas Penal Code. 3rd-degree felony, 2 to 10 years. And it did not matter whether the parties believed the first marriage was over. The law did not care about beliefs. It cared about paperwork. He told me to find our marriage certificate. The one from the ceremony at St. Michael's Church in San Antonio, registered with the Bexar County Clerk. Make copies. Photograph it. Upload it to cloud storage. Email it to myself. Give a copy to someone I trusted back in Texas. Then he said something I wrote down immediately on the back of a hospital schedule and pinned to the wall above my bunk. He said, "The money you have been sending home is not charity, Marco. Under Texas community property law, that is marital contribution. Document it the way an attorney would, not the way a husband would. Because if this goes where I think it is going, that paper trail is the only thing standing between you and losing everything you built." I sat on that kitchen floor in Dara with a pen and a hospital notepad, and I wrote down everything he said. And then I got to work. Over the following months, I documented everything. Every wire transfer, the date, the amount, the stated purpose, the confirmation receipt. I went back through 4 years of records and organized them into a single folder on my laptop, backed up to 2 separate cloud drives, and a physical USB stick I kept in a locked compartment of my suitcase. The renovation payments, the vehicle money, the business startup capital, all of it time-stamped, receipted, cross-referenced with the text messages in which Rachel had requested each transfer, because she had asked in writing. Every single time, "Babe, the contractor needs the next draw this week for the kitchen demo. The dealership is holding the Tahoe. I need the balance by Friday or they sell it. The laundromat equipment deposit is due. Send the remaining amount and I will handle the rest." I had never deleted a single message. Perhaps some quiet part of me had always understood that trust without documentation is just hope wearing a disguise. Perhaps I had simply been raised by a father who kept every receipt from every transaction he ever made and told his sons that paper is the only witness that never changes its story when the room fills up with opinions. I took screenshots of everything, hundreds of them, organized by date, category, and amount. I also contacted a family law attorney in San Antonio, someone David recommended, a woman named Catherine Shaw who had an office downtown near the Behar County Courthouse and a reputation for handling cases where spouses abroad had been systematically deceived and dispossessed of community property. I explained my situation over a video call taken in the hospital parking lot during my lunch break. She told me that because our marriage was legally valid, and because the house was purchased during the marriage, and because I had made documented financial contributions to its renovation and to the business registered at our address, I had a rock-solid legal claim. Not a moral argument. A legal one. Backed by the Texas Family Code. Backed by community property statute. Backed by paper. She told me to come home when I was ready. She told me to bring everything. There is something I want to say here. Not just as part of my story, but as something I wish someone had told me before I ever left the country. So many men and women working overseas send money home and call it love. So many people sacrifice sleep, health, and years of their prime and call it duty. So many of us fund houses, vehicles, businesses, school tuitions, medical bills, and family emergencies and keep no proper record because keeping records felt like distrust, felt suspicious, felt like building an exit ramp in a marriage you were praying you would never need to leave. I was almost one of those men. The only reason I was not is because David sat me down over the phone one Tuesday night in a parking lot in Dubai and told me that documentation is not suspicion. It is self-respect. It is the difference between being able to prove what you built and being erased as though you built nothing at all. If you are someone right now, man or woman, working far from home and sending money back every month and trusting completely, please hear me. Keep the receipts. Not because your spouse will betray you, not because your family is dishonest, but because you deserve to have your sacrifice recorded in something more permanent than memory. You deserve evidence that you were there, that you worked, that you gave, that you built something real with your hands and your time and your years. Paper does not get tired. Paper does not change its story when the room fills up with relatives who have already chosen a side. Now let me tell you what I found when I examined the business records. Catherine had advised me early on to ensure that any business started with marital funds had proper documentation of my contribution. I had followed that advice. When the laundromat was being registered with the state, I had arranged through my brother Danny to ensure the LLC formation documents listed me as a co-owner and managing member. Rachel did not know I had done this. She thought the business was entirely hers. She had been running it as hers, collecting the revenue, using the profits to fund her new life, the life that included Tyler, the restaurant dinners, the lake trips, the wedding reception I had walked into. What she did not know was that her business partner, silent, distant, documented, legally named, was me. The same man she had erased from the closet. The same man she had told San Antonio had abandoned her. The same man now sitting in a guest room of his own house with a laptop full of evidence, an attorney on speed dial, and absolutely nothing left to lose. When Catherine Shaw's office sent the first formal letter to Rachel, copied to the Texas Secretary of State and the county clerk, notifying her that her co-owner was asserting his legal rights and requesting a temporary restraining order freezing certain business transactions pending a formal review of community assets, the phone call started. But none of them came to me. They went to her mother. And that was how I knew the panic had begun. In every family, there is a gathering for every crisis. Someone gets sick, there is a gathering. Someone gets arrested, there is a gathering. Someone gets caught building a second life while their spouse is overseas funding the first one. There is absolutely, inevitably, unavoidably a gathering. They called it 5 days after I arrived home. Ray Whitfield, the eldest of Rachel's uncles, a retired high school principal whose voice could silence a room simply by clearing his throat, sent word through Diane that the family would be meeting Saturday morning to sort this whole thing out. That was the phrase they used. To sort this out. As though 4 years of my money, for years of my faithfulness, for years of my loneliness and canned tuna and bottom bunks could be gathered into a Saturday morning and sorted over coffee and breakfast tacos. I said I would be there. What I did not tell them was what I was bringing. The morning of the meeting, I woke before 5. Not because of anxiety, though I will not claim there was none. I woke early because I wanted to be composed before the day began. I wanted to sit with myself before I sat with them. I wanted to walk into that living room as the most prepared person in the house. Preparation, I had learned across 4 years of discipline, does not happen in a rush. I made coffee. I sat at the kitchen table, my kitchen table in my house, and I opened the folder on my laptop one final time. Wire transfer records, for years of them, every amount, every date, every stated purpose. Text message screenshots, Rachel's own words requesting each transfer, timestamped, unedited, undeniable. The marriage certificate from St. Michael's Church, registered with the Behar County Clerk, valid, signed, completely intact. The LLC formation documents for the laundromat, both our names, co-owners, my financial contribution documented to the last dollar. The unsigned, unfiled divorce papers I had found in the desk drawer, evidence that a dissolution had been considered and then abandoned without my knowledge. And one final document. A letter from Catherine Shaw's office, formal and precise, outlining my legal position as a spouse, a co-owner of the marital home under Texas community property law, a named managing member of the jointly held business, and a brief but unmistakable reference to the criminal implications of bigamy under Section 25.01 of the Texas Penal Code. I closed the laptop. I dressed carefully, not to impress, to communicate. I wore a clean button-down and pressed khakis, the kind of outfit that says I am not here to grieve. I am here in full command of the facts. I arrived at Ray Whitfield's house at exactly 10. The living room was already full. Chairs arranged in a loose circle, the way families arrange themselves when they want the appearance of fairness even when the outcome has been decided in advance. I counted. 14 people. Rachel sighed almost entirely. 3 of her uncles, 2 aunts, Diane in the chair closest to Ray with her arms crossed, and her expression suggesting she considered this meeting a formality before my departure. A pastor from their church, brought for the moral weight his collar was supposed to lend the proceedings. On my side, my brother Danny, who had driven from Austin before dawn and sat with his jaw set and his hands flat on his knees, and Catherine Shaw, who had agreed to attend not as an adversary, but as a calm, professional reminder of what was legally possible if this was not resolved appropriately. Rachel sat directly across from me. She did not look at me when I entered. She looked at her phone. She looked at the window. She looked at her mother. She looked everywhere that was not my face. I sat down. I placed the folder on my lap. I folded my hands on top of it. And I waited. Ray opened with a prayer. Then he cleared his throat and began speaking in the measured, careful tone of a man who has rehearsed what he is about to say. He said that marriage was sacred and that family was the bedrock of community. He said that disagreements between husband and wife were natural and could be resolved with maturity, faith, and goodwill on both sides. He said that Marco, meaning me, was a good provider, but that his extended absence had created a vacuum, his word, a vacuum, and that Rachel had done her best to manage that vacuum. He said the family was asking me, in a spirit of reconciliation and Christian charity, to consider the situation with grace, to allow everyone to move forward, to perhaps acknowledge that time and distance had changed the marriage beyond repair, and to let Rachel build the life she had started. He said all of this without once acknowledging what had been done to me. without once mentioning the 4 years of money I had sent, without once addressing the man who had been installed in my home, my bedroom, my closet, without once acknowledging the wedding ceremony that had been held in my yard, on my property, powered by my electricity, shaded by my oak tree, without once mentioning the divorce papers that had been drawn up without my knowledge and abandoned and signed in a drawer like a rough draft of a lie that was never quite finished. He finished. He looked at me with the patient, expectant expression of a man who assumed I would now nod or concede or thank him for his wisdom or do whatever it is that good men are supposed to do when the elders have spoken. The room waited. I opened the folder. I did not raise my voice. I did not lecture. I did not perform. I spoke clearly, calmly, the way Catherine had coached me to speak in the days leading up to this meeting. Facts first, emotion later, if at all. Let the paper do the heavy lifting. I said I appreciated the family gathering today and that I also had some things to share. I took out the wire transfer records first. I passed printed copies around the circle. One to Ray, one to each uncle, one to the pastor. I watched their eyes move across the columns. Month after month of transfers, amounts that made one of the aunts lean back in her chair. I said that this was what I had sent home every month for 4 years. That these were not gifts. That these were documented contributions to this marriage, this home, and the business registered at our address. I took out the text message screenshots next. Rachel's own words, asking for each transfer, thanking me for each transfer, promising that the work was getting done, promising that she missed me, promising that the future we had planned was getting closer every day. I passed those around the circle too. The atmosphere in the room had changed. The confident, rehearsed energy that had filled it when I arrived was draining towards something else. Something uncomfortable. Something that looked a lot like the first seconds of accountability arriving uninvited. I took out the marriage certificate. I placed it on the coffee table in the center of the circle. I said that this marriage was solemnized at St. Michael's Church and registered with the Behar County Clerk. That it was a valid and subsisting marriage under Texas law. That it had not been dissolved by any court. That no final decree of divorce existed. That I had never been served with any petition. That whatever ceremony took place in this front yard 5 days ago had no legal effect whatsoever. And that under Section 25.01 of the Texas Penal Code, conducting a marriage ceremony while a prior valid marriage still exists is classified as bigamy, a third-degree felony, carrying a sentence of 2 to 10 years in state prison. I looked at the pastor. He looked at the marriage certificate. He looked at the floor. Rachel had put her phone down. Diane opened her mouth. Then she closed it. One of the uncles, the younger one who had been nodding along with Ray's opening speech, leaned forward and said quietly, "Rachel, what is this?" Rachel said nothing. I took out the business documents last. I said that the laundromat operating from a commercial lease co-signed with marital funds was jointly registered under both our names. That I was a managing member of the LLC, that the business accounts had been reviewed and certain transactions had been flagged for formal inquiry, that unless this matter was resolved properly and equitably, the inquiry would proceed, along with any additional legal action my attorney deemed appropriate. I closed the folder. I said that I had not come to this meeting to destroy anyone, that I had come because I was invited to sort something out, and I believed all the information needed to sort it out was now on the table. The silence that followed was the longest silence I have ever sat inside. It filled the room completely, from the floor to the ceiling, pressing against the walls like something solid. Then Ray Whitfield turned slowly in his chair and looked at Rachel. And Rachel, my wife, the woman who had told San Antonio I had abandoned her, the woman who had cleared my clothes from our closet and put another man's shoes on my rack and framed his photograph on my nightstand, finally looked up. She looked at me, and for the first time since I had come home, I saw it on her face. Not irritation, not defiance, fear. The pastor spoke first. He said carefully that the ceremony he had officiated could not be recognized if the prior marriage was still legally standing. He said this the way a man says something he wishes he did not have to say, quietly, without meeting anyone's eyes, like a person stepping back from a fire he did not start. Then Ray said something I had not expected. He said, "Rachel, you told us the divorce was finalized." Rachel said nothing. Ray continued. He said that she had told this family, told him personally that the papers had been signed and the decree had been granted and the marriage was legally dissolved. Still nothing. One of the aunts made a sound. Not a word. A sound. The particular sound a woman makes when she realizes she has been used as a prop in someone else's performance. A sound of recalibration, of anger arriving slowly and settling in for a long stay. Diane sat very still. Her arms were no longer crossed. Her corsage from the wedding was nowhere in sight. Something behind her eyes shifted, and I watched it happen because I was watching her carefully. She had known, or she had suspected, or she had chosen not to ask, because the answer would have complicated the version of events she had already committed to believing. I will never know which, and it no longer matters. The meeting did not end with reconciliation. It ended with Ray Whitfield telling Rachel, in front of the full circle, in front of the pastor, in front of her own mother, that she had deceived her family, participated in an illegal ceremony, and placed every person who attended that wedding in a position of moral and potentially legal compromise. He said it slowly. He did not raise his voice, but the weight of it filled the room completely, like water rising through the hull of a ship that does not yet know it is sinking. The ceremony with Tyler was declared void, not by a court, not yet, but by the family itself, by the people who had celebrated it, who now understood what they had unknowingly participated in. Tyler was not in the room, but someone would have to tell him. Rachel sat in her chair and said nothing for a very long time. And I sat across from her with my empty folder resting on my lap and my hands folded quietly on top of it. And I felt something I had not expected to feel in that room. Not triumph, not relief, something quieter than both. Something that felt, strangely, almost like peace. Because the truth had not needed me to shout it, had not needed me to throw furniture or threaten anyone or perform the kind of masculine rage that every person in that room had been bracing for. It had simply needed to be placed on a table, and it had spoken entirely for itself. Everyone wanted to know what I was going to do to her. Family, neighbors, the people who had watched the canopies go up and come down, and were following the fallout the way you follow a series you have gotten invested in against your better judgment. They expected fire. They expected the scorned husband doing what scorned husbands are supposed to do in this country. The criminal complaint filed at the courthouse with the press tipped off. The social media post that tags everyone and screenshots everything and burns every bridge in a 50-mile radius. They expected destruction. What I gave them instead confused every single person. And it was the most powerful thing I have ever done in my life. Rachel begged. Not once. Repeatedly. Not quietly. Desperately. She came to me 10 days after the meeting, stood in the doorway of the guest room where I had been sleeping, and she was different. The composure was gone. The coldness was gone. What remained was a woman standing in the hallway of a house she had tried to take and asking a man she had tried to erase whether he could find it in himself to start again. She said she had made a terrible mistake. She said the loneliness had broken something inside her, that the distance had done something to the marriage that she did not know how to name or repair, that instead of telling me, instead of being honest about what 4 years of phone screens and wire transfers were doing to her from the inside, she had made choices she could not reverse. She said Tyler had been a comfort that became a complication that became something she could not undo. She said we built this together and begged me not to let it end this way. I listened to every word. I let her finish. Then I said I knew. Because I did know. I knew the distance had been devastating, not just for me, but for both of us. I knew that 4 years of video calls and text messages are not a marriage. They are a simulation of one, and simulations break under the weight of real life. I was not standing in that hallway pretending I had been perfect, or that the arrangement had been easy, or that nothing had been lost in those years of time zones and silence. I knew all of that, and it changed nothing, because here is what I had learned. Sitting on that kitchen floor in Dara, in the months of quiet preparation that followed, in the family meeting where paper had done what rage never could, forgiveness is not the same as return. I could forgive Rachel. I could understand the isolation, the loneliness, the weakness, the very human failure of a woman who had not been strong enough to wait or honest enough to ask for help. I could hold all of that complexity and still choose not to go back. Not because I hated her, not because I wanted to punish her, not because I needed San Antonio to see her suffer, but because I had spent 4 years building a life around a version of her that had never been honest with me, and I was not willing to spend the next 4 years, or the next 40, rebuilding on a foundation that had already proven it could not hold. Some things, once broken in a certain way, do not return to their original shape. That is not bitterness. That is just the honest physics of trust. Catherine filed the divorce petition the following week. A real one, properly prepared, properly served, properly grounded in the facts. Not because I was in a rush to be rid of her. The legal process would take months regardless, and I understood that. But the filing itself was a statement. It was me saying, in the clearest possible language, that I had assessed the situation with complete information and made a deliberate choice. Not a reaction, not an impulse, a decision. I did not file criminal charges for bigamy. Catherine had explained that I could. She had walked me through the evidence required, the process, the likely outcome. I considered it for one night, and then chose not to proceed. Not because what Rachel did was acceptable. Not because I had decided to forgive the crime alongside the betrayal. I chose not to proceed because I wanted to be free. Actually free. Not bound to this woman for another 2 years through the criminal courts while a case ground its way through a system that would keep us connected by anger long after every other connection had been severed. Freedom was worth more to me than punishment. I formally asserted my property claims. The house on Ridgecrest Lane, purchased during the marriage, improved and completed with my documented contributions, was community property under Texas law. Catherine was clear about this. Rachel did not contest it. I think by that point she understood that contesting would only extend a process that was already costing her more than money. The laundromat I withdrew from on my own terms, with a negotiated settlement reflecting my total financial investment. I did not try to take the business from her. I simply took back what was mine. The Tahoe I did not want. I told Catherine to factor its value into the overall settlement and leave the vehicle itself. I had no interest in trophies. I was interested in substance. When it was done, when the last document was signed and the settlement was agreed, and the legal chapter of this thing was formally, properly in motion, I sat in Catherine Shaw's office downtown, and I felt something I had been waiting for without knowing I was waiting. I felt light. Not happy. Not exactly. Not yet. Happiness would arrive later, in pieces, quietly, the way it always comes after something enormous has finally been set down. But the lightness came immediately. The specific lightness of a man who has stopped carrying something he was never meant to carry alone. Diane came to see me the week before I left San Antonio. I had not expected her. I opened the front door, and there she was. No champagne dress this time. No corsage. No moral certainty radiating from every fiber of her posture. Just a woman in a plain cardigan and slacks, holding a foil-covered dish that smelled like her brisket and a small bag of tamales from the place on Commerce Street that I had told her years ago was my favorite. She said she did not know if I would accept it. I looked at her for a long moment. This woman who had walked through a crowd and told me I was not welcome in my own home. This woman who had known, or suspected, or chosen not to ask, and had put on a mother of the bride corsage, and helped orchestrate the celebration of her daughter's illegal wedding in a house her son-in-law had built with 4 years of his life. I stepped back. I let her in. We sat at the kitchen table, my kitchen table, and she talked for a long time. Not excuses exactly. Something messier and more honest than excuses. She talked about fear, about the terror of watching her daughter alone and struggling, about the desperation of seeing a pregnancy arrive with no husband in the picture and deciding that the fastest solution was the right one, about the way a mother's protectiveness can make her complicit in things she would never endorse if she stopped long enough to think clearly, about how she had told herself the version of events she needed to believe because the alternative, that her daughter was the one in the wrong, that a man working himself thin in a desert was the one being wronged, was too painful to face. She did not ask me to forgive her. She did not ask me to forgive Rachel. She simply said that she saw me, that she saw what kind of man I was, and that she was sorry she had not seen it sooner. I opened the foil dish. I cut 2 slices of brisket. We sat together for over an hour, and when she left, I stood at the front door and watched her walk down the path of the house I would be leaving soon. The house I had paid for, renovated from a desert, come home to, and was now choosing to release. and I felt something unexpected and enormous moving through me. Not anger, not grief, grace. The specific grace that arrives when you stop needing someone to be punished and simply allow yourself to move forward. The grace that does not require an audience. The grace that is not performed for anyone, not for the neighbors, not for the family, not for the people online who might someday hear this story and judge every decision in it. The grace that is just for you. Quiet, private, complete. I left San Antonio 8 weeks after the family meeting. Not back to Dubai. That chapter was finished. I had submitted my resignation at Al Rashid before I boarded the homecoming flight because I had known, even before I heard the music, that whatever happened, I was not returning to that version of my life. I went to Denver, a fresh start in a city where nobody knew my story. My own apartment, my name on the lease, nobody else's. A position at a rehabilitation clinic that had been offered through a former colleague from Al Rashid. A city where I was not somebody's abandoned husband, or somebody's cautionary tale, or somebody's example of what happens when a man goes overseas and leaves his wife alone too long. I was just Marco, 33 years old, licensed physical therapist, extremely particular about keeping receipts, and for the first time in a very long time, entirely, completely, quietly free. I think about Tyler sometimes. He left San Antonio shortly after the family meeting. I heard through my brother that he had gone back to Dallas to figure out his next step, that there were conversations between his family and Rachel's about the baby, that the situation was being managed the way these things are always managed. Privately, carefully, with the smallest possible footprint. I hope he is all right. I mean that without irony. He was 27 years old, and he was lied to by a woman he trusted, the same way I was. His situation was harder than mine in some ways. He had no documentation, no lawyer friend in the Gulf, no months of quiet preparation behind him. He had only what he had been told and a child on the way. I hope someone is looking out for him. I hope he keeps his receipts from now on. There is one final thing I want to say before this story ends. People have asked me whether I regret the 4 years, whether I wish I had come home sooner, whether I think the sacrifice was worth it. My answer is always the same. I do not regret the years. I regret that they were spent on a foundation that had already been quietly demolished from the other side. But the years themselves, the discipline, the endurance, the financial awareness I was forced to develop, the documentation habits that ultimately saved me, those years made me the man who walked into that family meeting and placed the truth on a table and let it speak for itself. I do not regret the love either. I loved Rachel fully, faithfully, across 4 years and 7 time zones. That love was real, even if the marriage became a performance. And I have made peace with holding both of those truths at once. The love that was genuine and the loss that was also genuine, without needing to collapse them into a simpler story that makes one of us the hero and the other the villain. What I believe, what I carry forward from all of it, is this. Dignity is not something that can be taken from you. It can only be surrendered. And I did not surrender mine. Not when I stood at that gate with a duffel bag. Not when Diane told me I was not welcome in my own home. Not in the guest room where I cried for 15 minutes and then washed my face. Not in the family meeting where I opened a folder and let paper do what shouting never could. Not in the hallway where I listened to Rachel beg and then quietly, steadily chose myself. Not once. And now, before you leave this story, I have one final question for you. Not about Rachel. Not about the law. Not about wire transfers or community property or Section 25.01. This one is personal, because this story is not really about a man who flew home from Dubai to find a wedding in his front yard. This story is about what it costs to stay silent, what it costs to endure, what it costs to love someone across an ocean who is quietly, steadily building a life that no longer has room for you in it, and what it looks like when a man decides, not in a moment of fury, but in a moment of absolute clarity, that he is worth more than the story someone else wrote for him. So here's my question. Is there something in your life right now? A relationship, a situation, a silence you have been keeping, where you already know the truth, but you have been waiting for permission to act on it? What are you waiting for? Who gave them the right to write your story? Drop your answer in the comments. Share this with the man or the woman who needs to hear it today. Because somewhere right now, Someone is sitting on a kitchen floor in a shared apartment in a country that is not their own, eating crackers, staring at a screenshot on their phone, and wondering if they are overreacting. They are not. And they need to know that someone who has been exactly where they are made it through, with his receipts, with his dignity, and with every single piece of himself intact. Thank you for watching. If this story moved you, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and share it with someone who needs it, because the stories we tell each other are sometimes the only thing standing between someone making the worst decision of their life and making the best one. This story was inspired by real events. Names, locations, and identifying details have been changed. But the sacrifice, the silence, the documentation, and the choice, those are real. They happen every day, and they deserve to be spoken out loud.